We're speaking to John O this morning. He is the A&R manager at Red Records. Good morning, John.
Good morning. How are you guys?
We're
Doing good.
good. I love your setup there.
Hey, thank you.
Very
You're working from
Humble
home
little
as
professional.
home
well,
studio.
right?
Yeah, it's my humble little home studio. When
Humble.
we,
All right.
Okay.
when everyone was like, "Oh, you got to work from home," I was like, "Great, perfect."
Actually, we're loving this arrangement as well, working from home. Anyways, let's talk about you. So you were an accountant and now you're in the music industry. Can you tell us
That's
a
right.
little bit more about your life growing up? Like, what did you want to be growing up?
Oh, what a deep question at the
Yeah.
start of the. So I've always had really like varied interests. I want to do like 10 million different things. That being like my first recollection of, what do you want to be when you grow up was um I was in my mom's a doctor, so I went to visit my mom's clinic. I think I was 7 years old. So when you're a little kid, everybody's like, "Oh, so cute, hello." So my mom's boss comes up to me and he goes, "Hey, hi, you're this son, da, da, da. What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I confidently answer him, "I want to be a bus driver."
Oh, really? Right.
It's like, what? Because at that time, my school bus driver was super cool and I looked up to him. Yeah, hopefully my ambitions progressed a little bit. By the time I was like in higher secondary school, deciding what I wanted to do, it's weird because I always knew I wanted to do music. And then I decided that I wanted to get into business and start my own business. I want to be an entrepreneur, basically. And I figured like every business probably needs like two kinds of expertise: finance and law.
Mhm.
And because we couldn't afford to go and send me to study law, I went for accounting. And it's strange because I know the two are so opposed for everyone, but it did not occur to me at all when I was a kid. I just like,
Okay.
why not? I'll do both. And I didn't know how, but in my mind, the illogic, the how strange it was didn't occur to me at all.
Okay. So at the back of your mind, music was always going to be ultimately your career.
Yeah, but it was always going to be my career together with business and accounting and finance.
Were you good at math though? Do you have
No,
to be good
actually,
at math to be an accountant?
that is a myth. We have calculators. So accounting has very little to do with math. Yes,
Okay.
there's tons of numbers, but math, no, I was never great at math. I was okay. I wasn't one of those people like I hate math, but I
Okay.
wasn't a math whiz either.
Okay. But okay. Has music always been part of your life though from a young age? That's why you decided that you want to have a business career in music and all that? Or was it just something that struck you at a later age?
I think the seeds were planted young accidentally by my family because my dad's like massively into music. My mom as well, but my dad's like serious, like in family gatherings, family holidays. My dad would always be that guy with the guitar and everybody be like, "Please sing a song, sing us a few songs." And he had this great music collection, which I think till today still influences me. The classics like Bee Gees,
Mm.
Beatles, ABBA, all those cool, great music acts. So I think by the time I was about early secondary school, 13 maybe, it was already like, yeah, this is something I really want to do. Started a band at 14. Paper Plane's drummer, Drew, is actually like, he was in that band with me when we were 14.
Okay.
So from that point already, it started getting like pretty serious. And we were pretty hardcore with rehearsals and stuff. I
Mm-hmm.
remember doing like back-to-back rehearsals, like 6 hours long kind of thing, at least once a week, just drilling songs
At
and stuff.
14 years old.
Yeah, at
So
14.
you
Talk
were
about
More
all
than
self
back.
determination,
so you
man.
were all self-taught musicians.
Yeah. I mean, eventually we all started going for like informal classes, but nobody was like some kind of virtuoso or whatever.
Interesting. So you had your band going, you were in school, and then after you left school, you decided, yes, I'm going to take out accountancy.
Yes.
Was that the thought process?
I think I was in Form 4 when I first had the thought. And then in Form 5, when I was heading towards SPM, you need to start planning what you're going to do next. So my dad came out to me and he was like, okay, you got to start planning for college and think about what you want to study. So I was okay. So thought about it and I went up to my dad and I was like, you know what? I think I want to go and study music. And my dad's reaction was basically like, good one. Oh, really? What do you want to study?
Oh, seriously?
I was like, no, music is like, no, I mean, you're great at music and that's wonderful, but what do you want to study? You don't need to study music.
Right.
Very Asian family. You need
Yeah.
to study something real, like, a real job that you
Yeah.
can fall back on, not music.
At
Come
that point, he
on.
probably thought you would be gonna go into comedy or something.
So yeah, I'm that funny, right?
Right.
So I went back and I thought about it. And then I told my dad, okay, I want to study, told both my parents, I want to study accounting. And they were both like, what? Why? Like, you're studying science, you've never shown any interest in this, what on earth? Then I gave them the same kind of speech that I gave you. This is
Right.
why, blah, blah, blah. My parents were very skeptical, but I think they were like, it's a step up from music. So, okay, whatever, go do it.
Right.
They reluctantly agreed. Yes.
Okay. So when you were doing your accountancy study major and all that, were you still playing music?
Yeah. The band was still active. We had a different band name back then, but we released like a full album. So we were working on the album while I was studying for ACCA.
Okay.
A little bit hardcore overachiever action going on. That I think is only after I graduated that that big question of, okay, how seriously do I want to take this? How far can it go? That kind of thing.
Did you do well in your in your accountancy major?
Surprisingly, yes. Um,
So you
I,
surprised even yourself.
I surprised everyone, myself, my parents, like everyone is a bit skeptical because I chose to do a really difficult course. And like, I remember my parents asked me why I chose that course. And I said, oh, it's because the fastest possible time you can finish it is 3 years. Whereas most degrees are like 4 years, 5 years, including foundation and all of that. And they were like, yes, but people also take 10 years to finish this thing. I was like, I won't. And I surprised myself because I did mess around a lot, cut class and whatever. But I think the grace of God and lots of luck and having the right, like, I had great mentors and lecturers who really took care of me. So I can't take the credit for I'm some brilliant guy or whatever. But just given lots of chances to do well. And thankfully, I did finish in the shortest possible time, 3 years.
Wow, 3 years to finish. And plus all the papers and all that you have to take exams for and all, right?
Everything.
To become a chartered accountant.
Yep.
Wow.
So when you got your degree, you're at a crossroad now. Like, do you want to pursue accountancy as a full-time job, or
Yep.
are you still going to do music as part-time? What was your thought process at that time?
So I think, I when I graduated, I was 21. I think this was the first time the conflict hit me. Like, you can't go and like join the big four accounting firms or whatever and still have time to do music. By then I had like seniors who started working and they're telling me what working life was like. Everybody was working around the clock, 14-hour days, 16-hour days, 7 days a week. And I was like, that leaves no time for music. So I was trying to figure out what to do. And then I got offered a job by the dean, I guess, of the course that I was studying in Sunway. And he said, you've been highly recommended by your lecturers. One specifically was like my mentor, so to speak. And she said that she felt I would make a really great lecturer and she was happy to take me under her wing. So that became the like, oh. And then when I looked at the options, I was like, oh, I could like kind of choose my hours. It could be like as flexible as like 6 hours a week. If I wanted to scale it up, I'd scale it up. And the money was great too. So I was like, oh, win. Money is good. I have flexibility. I can do music on the side. And that's how okay, sounds good. So as soon as I graduated, I started working as a lecturer in Sunway University.
Wow.
Okay, as an accountancy lecturer at Sunway.
Did your parents go, wait, how is this even happening?
Yes. My parents were very much like, you're going to be a what? Like you? And like, I think even then for my parents, the whole thing was a little bit nonsensical. Like, you are an accounting lecturer?
I can hear your dad's voice in my head. I'm like, no, seriously, tell me what you're really going to do.
Exactly. It was still like, this makes no sense. Who offered you this job? And I had like longish hair and earrings and piercings and stuff. So it's just like, what on earth are they thinking? So at 21 years old, I was walking into classes teaching accounting. It was bizarre. Even now, as an older guy, and I look back, it's bizarre. I can't believe my boss took that chance on me.
But after you took the degree, though, did your passion for accounting sort of grew, or like did your passion for accounting grow after you got your degree, or was it still music at the back of your mind?
That's a very interesting question because I feel like I'm the kind of person that finds enjoyment and passion in anything, in
Mm.
whatever I want to do. So I definitely never grew up with this burning passion for numbers and like,
Mm.
I love accounting.
Yeah. The accounts are balanced. Oh, I have found like peace and everything. Like,
Nirvana, like debit credit. I love it. No, never. It was never that way. But by the time I had finished, I did find a lot of enjoyment in it.
Mm.
Admittedly, more finance, like which is a little bit more big picture, and maybe it because it fit my entrepreneurial interest better.
mm.
So I definitely did find enjoyment in it, and I feed off people's passions and enjoyment a lot. So my mentor at that time, she was one of those people who was like debit credit, I love it, and like she'd be explaining financial concepts and like, oh, so that's why it makes sense, and you can see the fire in her eyes and stuff. So that was very infectious, and I fed off that. So I did actually really enjoy it. But when I started working, I think teaching was really like, I was like, oh, I love this. And
Mm.
also because the people I was teaching, like, I was assigned to do foundation first. So I was teaching school leavers, like kids who just finished SPM. So, that at that very moldable stage where they're deciding what they want to do next, uh, kind of like how they can turn their dreams into reality. So all of that was really exciting for me, being able to
Mm.
motivate kids, being able to inspire them, speak into their lives. And, it's kind of like when you watch those movies, right? Where there's that cool teacher and then they go up to them for advice. Oh, my girlfriend broke up with me. I kind of fell into that role. So even
Mm.
to this day, I have students from way back then who are like friends to this day. So those relationships were really like priceless
Did
for
they
me.
become accountants and then work in the top four?
Some did, but I don't know. Sometimes I wonder whether it's my failure as a lecturer.
But
You
some
or
did, so
maybe
you're a good
influence them.
lecturer. Lah.
Yeah, you influence them to maybe
no, no.
not want to pursue accountancy.
Yes, maybe that was the bad influence.
Yeah.
Interesting, a lot of the students who became friends all went into other careers. Like
Mm.
either they finished and they went, or they just decided halfway, like, nah, this isn't for me. And some went far out to like some arts degree. Some just changed like a business degree or whatever. But for the most part, they're doing well, I think.
Okay. How long were you a lecturer for?
3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So you were a lecturer for 3 years. And what events led you to change your career path and then become a full-time musician?
So I don't think it's a specific event. It was more like what started out as a relaxed, easygoing part-time thing. It ended up escalating into I did surprisingly
Mhm.
well. And again, I can't take credit. There was so much of my mentor helping me and my boss giving me chances. So I went from lecturing foundation to by the time I was in my third year of work, I was lecturing the final year papers for ACCA. So there was high level.
Mm.
Money was great, but the demands of the job were insane as well. I was working 7 days a week. I was traveling for work. And basically, I came to this point where I was like, wow, I don't make music at all anymore. Like I had strained to play a show once in a while kind of thing because the demands of the schedule. And I suddenly asked myself, like, is this what I want to do with the rest of my life? And it became like, no, music is what I want to do. And this is the point where the conflict hit hardest. Like,
Mm.
okay, if I really want to go all out making music, I can't be doing something full time on the side. So I went up to my boss and I was like, hey, I think I need to leave to go do music. And everyone knew me as this musician. I would perform at events and stuff, or even like college events. So it wasn't like a surprise. I think it was just maybe for them, it was like he's going to grow out of it eventually and get
Yeah.
serious.
Yeah.
So it
They
wasn't
thought
like
it
my
was
boss
just
was,
a hobby, right?
Or a
yeah, a hobby
phase.
or a phase. Yeah.
Mm.
But it was like, nah, it's not a phase. So that's when I quit at 24.
Wow. At 24, with a secure job, you
Yes,
decided to become a freelancer.
that's right.
Like, were you worried? Were you worried about the risks involved in this career change?
I think to some extent, yes, but it's the arrogance of youth. Like everything will work out. You don't think that far ahead when you're 24.
Mm-hmm.
And also, like there weren't that much commitments. I was living at home with my parents, so and I surprisingly earned enough in the 3 years that I could give. I gave myself 2 years to figure out what I wanted to do.
Mm.
So I'd saved enough that I could live off my savings for 2 years with no work, no income at all,
Mm-hmm.
while I figured out what I was going to do next. So that sort of padding made me feel a bit more safe and secure.
Oh, you
So
mean at that point when you left your job as a lecturer, you haven't started Paper Plane Pursuit, or have you already?
wait, there was still like the previous band name. It was
Ah,
called Silent Scream. I
okay.
think right after I left, we renamed the band, if I remember right, or sometime soon after that. It's all a blur right now, but it was more or less the same band. But it was like, okay, how am I going to make a career out of this? How are we going to go like all out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I gave myself like a 2 year deadline to give myself a sound engineering degree or music production degree. Just
Okay.
like reading books, watching YouTube videos, doing everything that I can to,
Oh,
because I'd already learned, like gotten a degree in accounting, but now I needed to educate myself in music. So that's what the next 2 years were about.
okay. So you didn't actually go for like a formal sound engineering music degree.
Now that you mentioned, I don't know why I didn't, but maybe again it's the arrogance of youth, like I can do this on my
Yep,
own. Why
yep,
should I pay
yep.
someone for it? So, yeah, so I just chose to like teach myself everything I needed to know.
Okay. I guess the most important question here is how did you justify leaving your job to become a musician to your family?
Oh, to my family. So it was the same thing again. Like, the what?
Again, again.
This boy makes no sense. So from coming from the you want to be what? An accountant to you're gonna be what? An accounting lecturer to you're gonna what? Quit your job. So my parents are like, this whole thing already made no sense. And in 3 years you work to become so successful. People work 10 years, 15 years to reach this level of success. Why are you quitting now? Oh, man. Asian parents, right?
Yeah.
So interestingly, after all the back and forth, I was trying to be as polite as I could. Interestingly, the thing that clinched the discussion was I laughed and I said to my parents, look at me. Do I look like an accountant to you? Do I look like an accounting lecturer to you? So it was like, like they both kind of settled down. And I said, I don't know, maybe it's luck, maybe it's grace of God, blessing, whatever you want to call it, right? But for whatever reason, someone like me has managed to find success in a field like lecturing and accounting. So I feel like I'm just lucky enough to find success in whatever I put my hands to.
Mm-hmm.
How much more success can I find if I put my hands to something I really want to do?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know me, I'm not some lazy bum. I'll work hard, I'll be driven, and I'll do my best.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's something that I really, really like, gets me up in the morning, really want to do, surely, like, if I can find success in this, I can find success in that, right? And that's what made my parents like, yeah, okay, you know what, like, cool. And again, the arrogance of youth, the kind of laughing disclaimer to my parents was, I'm like, I already did it actually. I've made up my mind. It's not like I'm asking for your permission. Like I'm a grown man. I just want to get your blessing. So, let me proceed with your
Okay.
blessing kind of thing. So they respected that as well. They're like,
Okay.
okay, you know what? Like, yeah, you have our blessing and, we want the best for you. Hopefully you succeed.
So you gave yourself a 2 year timeline, sort of. Did they give you a timeline? Like if you cannot be successful within a certain time period, then you have to go back to your becoming an accounting lecturer.
They didn't give me a timeline, but they said many times that I should have a timeline. Like you should be mindful of this.
Yeah.
And even though I had it internally, I always kind of push back and like, no, you can't put a timeline on things like this. What is success? How do you define it?
Especially in music, right? How do you define success?
Exactly. Like, is it money? Is it
Yeah.
chart success? Is it
Yeah.
A
fame? Who
Grammy.
knows, right? Yeah,
Mm.
is it a Grammy? It's so debatable.
Okay.
So yeah, I always push back. Yeah.
So tell us about Paper Plane Pursuit. How long did it take you guys from when you changed your name until you became like top of the charts?
We officially changed our name in 2009, if I remember right. And it was 2015, 2014, 2014 when we started getting some degree of success. So I guess for most people, like, oh, that's 5 years. That's not
Mhm.
too bad. But I think for me personally, it was like, oh, I started this band when I was
Mm.
14. So it felt like 15 years later, something started like, doing
Mhm.
well. So if I'm being honest, it felt like too long. It took way too long.
Mhm.
But I think that was also the process of getting older and learning to manage expectations. And like I said, how do you define success?
Yeah.
So there was always that conflict between my own self of like, oh, I get to do what I want to do like for a living. That is living the dream. Like by that time, I was doing music full time. I wasn't really doing anything else. So getting up every morning to a studio setup and being able to make music for a living was already living the dream.
Mhm.
But there was a lot of hard slogging. By that time, I taught myself to do music recording on my own music production. So I was writing and recording and producing, mixing all of the stuff myself. Eventually, I hired like an intern who became the band's bassist. So it was like a nice
Mm.
little story right there. We started releasing songs on our own. It was maybe about 2 or 3 years of doing that before our first song kind of like clicked with people in a big way. That was 2014. It was a song called Beauty of Your
Mm.
Love. So that was a song we did with another local musician named Darren Ashley. And I honestly think his involvement had so much to do with the success of the song. Brilliant songwriter, still one of my favorite musicians, producers to this day, huge influence. So that I think we would, when you get stuck doing something one way for so long, you just kind of stuck in a rut. But working with him kind of expanded my mind of like, oh, the possibilities, and the sound changed quite a lot after that as well.
Mhm.
So 2014, still things started picking up in a big way. We released another song called Feel Good that same year. And I think at the end of the year, I had that feeling of like, oh, wow, maybe I'm like starting to make it. I had a meeting with the guys at Hits, and I remember them telling me like, oh, we were discussing like stats and stuff, and apparently like both songs were playing on like daily rotation for more than like 8 months or something like that in
Wow.
2014. I was just like, what?
On Malaysia's number one English hits channel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and like everywhere I went, the song was playing. Friends kept calling me up, and I fed up of hearing your voice. And like I think they told me like at the highest point they were playing the song once every 2 hours.
Hmm.
So obviously for friends and family, that started getting like for them as well. It's like, oh, this kid's starting to do okay. And the next year was the year that we managed to break into the Billboard charts, and that was Billboard. So I think
Wow.
that was definitely the oh yeah, things are going really well. And
Okay.
that's probably like Paper Plane in a nutshell.
Okay. But how
It was a very
challenging was
long
it?
nutshell, sorry.
How challenging was it to be a freelancer, a musician, or an entrepreneur? Did your knowledge in numbers and accounting help you in your music career?
It was very, if I'm being honest, there are many, many points when it was really hard and
Mm.
depressing and discouraging.
Yeah.
And a lot of it felt like a very lonely journey because a lot of our journey in the band, we felt very isolated from the rest of the creative scene. Like we were never arty enough or like, muso enough for the musicians. And we were never like business enough for the corporate guys or corporate enough for those guys. So I always felt like I sat in this weird in between. I think the financial training helped for sure because like a lot of the stuff that tends to scare creatives like numbers, legal
Mm.
contracts, all of that stuff that was never again not because of my own strength as a person but just because of the exposure. If we were discussing like a client, they want to hire us for a show or some kind of an endorsement deal, when they roll out the contract is when they expect everyone to like, oh, yeah, yeah, sure, whatever. Whereas I'd be like, yeah, cool. What about this? What about that? Can we change this? Can we change that? So I think it really helped us to handle the band as a business more than just like a passion or whatever. And I do believe that really helped to drive everything that we managed to achieve. And it wasn't just me, like all of the bandmates were very non-typical musicians as well. Like my drummer, the one I started the band with, is a doctor as well.
Mm.
So that kind of corporate thinking was always there to like we need to be driven and disciplined. But no, there's no two ways about it. It was hard work.
Was your friend, your band member, still a doctor when he was part of Paper Plane Pursuit?
Yeah,
He
I
was still
think
practicing as a doctor the whole time.
he was. I think it was actually during our peak that he even opened his own clinic.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that entrepreneurial bent, is definitely a common theme in the band. Yeah.
Wow, interesting. Now, I read during an interview, you once actually said that you should never quit your day job.
Did I
Uh,
say that?
yes, there was one
Wow.
interview that you told, like, it was like an advice piece that you told people that you should never quit your day job. Do
Or
you
did they
regret?
interview your dad?
I know, right? Maybe
Do
I just
you
talk so much I
regret,
forget what I say.
like, do
No.
you do you regret leaving your lecturer accountancy life behind to pursue music? Was there
No,
ever an inch of regret?
never. Not even to this day. But I think I remember where I was coming from. Like, yeah, I quit my day job, but I was also very fortunate to be able to find jobs doing stuff like voiceovers. I kind of fell into that by accident, and that was good money as well. My bandmates had sort of side jobs for a long, long time, and that allowed us to be very picky about what we chose to do. Like, if I give you the typical example, and there's no right or wrong, it's just what you want to do. Like with Paperplane, we knew that we wanted to be recording artists releasing original music, and we wanted to get known for that. Not like playing covers and oh, you sound really good singing that Bruno Mars song, for
Mm,
example. Like that wasn't my thing.
mm,
Great if it's someone else's, it just wasn't my thing. So a lot of musicians, like, because music doesn't pay the bills very well, you kind of, okay, I'm going to play in the pub on the weekend, I'm going to start doing jingles or write songs for other people, like for ads or whatever it is. But because we had the income coming in from whatever else we were doing, we could hold out for quite a long time. Like I think I mentioned just now, like when we were doing it seriously, it was at least 3 or 4 years where we did not play any pub gigs, we didn't do cover shows, we didn't play jingles or whatever it is. We just went hardcore in this. We will try really hard to make a name with our original music, with our production quality and all of that. And that kind of fortitude is very difficult when you have no income.
yeah.
Like, especially as you get older and you have a family or whatever, you need to pay the bills, you need to put food on the table. So it's from that perspective, I mean, like, look, if you can have a day job that takes that pressure off doing that thing you really
Passion
want to do,
project. Yeah.
yeah. And I think a lot of businesses start like that, if we're being honest, whether it's music or anything else, it starts off as a passion project and you need to do it the way you want it to be in the future. And that might mean no money for the next 3 years, right? So having that day job kind of takes the edge off. You're not panicking and like, oh my God, I'm eating sand for the next 3 years.
Yeah, or you don't make desperate decisions in business also, right?
Agreed, 100%.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, I think now that I'm older, I feel like never say never. But yeah, maybe not never quit your day job, but hold on to it until it's the right time.
Yeah. So what if a young person were to come up to you and say he's studying to be a doctor, let's just say, but he wants to become a musician? Would you tell him to finish his medical degree first?
Almost 100%. Yeah. Just because, first of all, I feel like learning something else is just so beneficial. Like, if all you've ever known is music, for example, that becomes your norm, whether that's the way other musicians operate or just the culture and all of that. And just being exposed to something different, I think really helps. So, like, even from my casual observation, both my parents are doctors, so I know what the doctor lifestyle is like. My bandmate was a doctor, two of my bandmates for many years. So, just like, you feel like you have human limitations. I need to sleep, I need to eat, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
When you look at doctors, those limitations don't exist with them. So I'll give you one example. I remember vividly this show where they were going through housemanship at that point. So two of my bandmates, that means say tonight's the show, right? They started work yesterday in the morning. They worked around the clock till 5 p.m. today. Then they showed up for sound check and then we played the show.
Wow.
And I was tired because of whatever else I was doing. And I remember just sitting there like, how are they doing this? This is more than 24 hours straight with no rest, no sleep, no breaks, and they barely had a meal at all. So, that kind of work drive rarely exists. And I don't mean to sound judgmental because I'm a musician. I rarely see that kind of drive with musicians, with creatives. So just being exposed to a different lifestyle, I think is so valuable. Why not?
Okay.
And lastly, on that final note, right, I feel like even if you don't end up practicing medicine in music, like how are you going to apply it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even if you don't, that confidence will stay with you. I finished medical degree. 20 years later, when you're a drummer or whatever, you still know I could finish a medical degree, man. Don't mess. And that confidence of I'm a doctor, even if you never tell people, you don't introduce yourself as Dr. James or whatever, right? You know it. That confidence stays with you. And I think that's invaluable.
Nice.
Hey, but Brian May's has a doctorate in Lord knows what
I know, right?
right? Yeah, you can always.
It's
Yeah,
surprisingly common. And when you
Did
listen
you?
to him speak,
Yeah.
it shows. He
Yeah.
sounds like some brilliant
super intelligent
dude.
guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think I remember you telling me that you are married and a you have a daughter at that time,
Uh,
is it? No.
I'm married, but no kids yet.
No kids yet. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Oh, it's like I thought I want to ask you whether if your child were
Oh,
to come up to you like yourself, right? Like, I wanna go do music. Would you allow that?
yeah. I think I'd like to think one day when I'm a parent, I'm not gonna have any like you should do this or that for my kid.
Mm,
First of all, I feel like it's a lot more important that my kid's a good person more than what you do with your
yeah.
career. Like I
Yeah.
think really that matters so much more in the larger scheme of things. And then beyond that, like if you excel at what you're doing, I think that's amazing.
Mm,
You have integrity in what you're doing, you do it well, you do it to the best of your abilities. I feel like all of that matters way more to me than what specific career my kid chooses to do. And of course, I understand you got to pay bills and all of that, but I think I'm still like idealistic and naive enough to believe if you're a good person, you operate in integrity, and you're great at what you do, you will find success and financial success in whatever you're doing.
So you're never gonna go back to being a bus driver.
You never know. Never say never.
when he has kids and he needs to be a bus driver again to school, right?
We'll start small, be the minivan driver.
Yeah. But what would you say, John, to parents who insist that their children have a professional career or a degree in something in the professional field before they are able to pursue something that they're passionate in? Like your father, when you told him you wanted to study music, what music?
I don't know if this sounds too touchy-feely, but like, first of all, I feel like just don't insist in the first place. There's so many better ways of going about it. I don't think there's anything wrong with kind of feeling very strongly that your kid should get a traditional degree or
Yeah.
whatever, but talk the kid through it. There's no need to insist. And and I say that from the perspective of now as a grown man, I actually am very grateful that my parents pushed me to do something else because I have exposure to another area, like I said, and that expertise that you can still get it. You can learn finance or entrepreneurship or whatever, but it's just harder. I honestly feel like it's easier, for example, for me to go and to have learned music theory or music knowledge or production because I want to do it. And also because maybe it's not quite accurate to say, but I feel like those areas are easier to pick up on your own compared to learning something like law or finance or whatever. It's harder. It's easier to just get a degree or get an education doing that. So sure, why not? But there are consequences to everything. In many ways, I kind of feel like I found success in music so much later because I didn't have the background that other musicians did. Like my wife, for example, studied sound engineering, so like even when I was learning all of that stuff, I would look at her and other musicians with envy and go, man, would I be so much further ahead if I had learned all of that stuff and graduated at 21? Maybe I'd be like, traveling the world by now because of that background. So you never know. I
Yeah.
feel like sometimes parenting is like rolling the dice and hoping for the best, which is why I said don't insist, man. You don't know better. Just talk things through with your kid.
Wait, did you marry a wife who's a sound engineer so you could save money on sound engineer?
It's such a great question. But no. She was inactive actually at that point,
Right.
but she was a makeup artist and she did a lot of like paper planes makeup and stuff. So I was like, girl, maybe that thought process was still there.
Do you ever?
The accountant in you, right? Can like check and balance. If I can get this for free,
No.
even better.
No, at that point you go debit, credit, Nirvana. Finally get a moment.
That's about right. That's about right.
Actually,
well, yeah.
Do you ever when you have kids, let's just say, right, and then they're growing up, do you ever? I know you're very open. You say don't insist on what they want to do and everything, but at the back of your mind, do you kind of want to mess with your kids and then put what your father said to you, and then you want to do what? What kind of a career is that? Do you ever want to play with that?
I think there's no doubt about that.
Just mess with them a bit, man.
Like, my teenage boy goes like, Dad, I think I want to become a ballet dancer. And I'm like, are you mad? You're stupid. You need sand for the rest of your life. Just to see how he reacts. Just kidding, son. Good.
Oh my god.
I know JD would do that if he has
I would
kids.
do that, man. I'd
Yeah,
just mess with my kids.
definitely.
See what the hell would happen to them. Man.
Experiment.
Yeah.
I feel like that's like going to be 90% of my entertainment as a parent.
Yeah. You talk to the wife. Hey, I'm gonna say this. Let's see what they do, right?
Correct.
Fathers,
And
I
just
tell you.
drag it on
Ay,
as
ay,
long
ay.
as you can.
I
Exactly.
don't.
That's the dad privilege.
Yeah.
Just mess with your kids, prank
Exactly.
them. Yeah.
I'm
Let's
sure
see
your
how this
mom
prank
didn't do
can go.
that to you, right?
No, never.
Yeah.
Uh,